I mean, it's there. It's fine. Thank you. Let me see your calendar there just a second. The House Government Operations Committee for February 28th will come to order, please. Take the roll, please.
Representatives Byrd, here. Calfee, present. Camper, Cochran, here. Dixie, Faison, Johnson, Lafferty, here. Lamberth, Littleton, Marsh, Stewart, Warner, here. Vice Chairman Reedy, here. Chairman Reagan.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you, members. Do we have any personal orders? Seeing none, today we have a consent calendar for consideration. It contains 7 items. Are there any objections to the consent calendar? Seeing none, we will be voting on the consent calendar. All members in favor of sending the consent calendar to calendar rules say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Moves out. We'll now move to the regular calendar. Item number 1, House Bill 1925 by Chairman Boyd. Motion. We have a motion, a second. You're recognized, Chairman, to explain your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Committee, House Bill 1925 was brought by the National Association of Insurance Commissioners and the U.S. Travel Insurance Association. It is some model legislation that should bring some consistency and uniformity to an industry that's had some regulatory uncertainty. A few of the things that it does, it defines industry terms in a uniform way. It clarifies permissible sales practices, prohibits the practice of opt-out sales, which is automatically enrolling people in travel insurance without them being consulted, and it requires clear consumer disclosures. And we hope that, like I said, this will bring some uniformity to an industry. It's been done in 18 other states, and I think a lot of states are bringing it this year as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Members, you've heard an explanation by the sponsor. We did get a motion and a second on that. So is there any questions of the sponsor? Seeing none, without objection, we're going to be voting on sending House Bill 1925 to calendar and rules. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Bill moves out to calendar and rules.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Committee.
Item number 2 on our agenda is House Bill 2561 by Chairman Terry. Do I have a motion? Motion. And we have a motion and a second. Chairman Terry, I believe yours is traveling with an amendment. I show 014358. Is that correct?
I think I've got.
I'm sorry. That's one I'm going to put on it.
Yes. I've got 13694.
Thank you. So before you explain that,
okay, go ahead.
Let's go ahead and put my amendment on it. Vice Chairman Reedy, would you take up the gavel, please?
Chairman Reagan, you're recognized on Amendment 14358. Do I have a motion? Motion. And a second. Chairman Reagan, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman Reedy. This is a simple amendment that puts the speech pathology interstate compact into the sunrise and review cycle. It includes occupational therapy compact as well. With that explanation, I stand ready for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Any questions, comments from the committee members? Seeing none, are we ready to vote? All those in favor of putting the Amendment 1435 onto House Bill 2561 state by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition, nay. Amendment's on. Chairman Reagan, the gavel is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Now, sponsor, as amended, please explain your bill.
Thank you. And House Bill 2561 would enter Tennessee into 2 interstate compacts. Section 1 of the bill is for occupational therapists, and Part 2 is for the audiologists and speech-language pathologists. And these compacts would allow reciprocity between these professions in other states. And then with the amendment that you just put on, it would sunset this compact.
Members, you've heard the explanation from the sponsor. As a reminder, Tennessee is already a party to over 19 interstate compacts, so this is nothing new for us. Are there any questions for the sponsor on that? The question has been called for. Without objection, we are voting on House Bill 2561 to go to Finance, Ways, and Means. All in favor indicate by saying aye. All opposed, nay. Ayes have it. The bill moves out to Finance, Ways, and Means. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Chairman and Committee.
Next up on the agenda, House Bill 2125 by Chairman Howell. We have a motion and a second. Mr. Sponsor, you have a motion and a second on your bill. Would you care to explain it?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I will let you know that this bill was written in consultation with the Tennessee Park Service, and they are deferred on the bill. There are numerous vendors in Tennessee who have contracts with our Park Service. They do business with the state parks and on the state park sites. The contracts are public records. However, these contracts, because they are with the state, require that TDEC gather certain business information, proprietary information about their businesses to ensure that they are complying with the contracts. What this bill simply does is protect that proprietary information, not the contracts, but protects the proprietary information and from public inquiries. With that, Mr. Chairman, I would like to have a positive vote.
Members, you've heard an explanation. Do we have questions of the sponsor? The question's been called. Members, we're voting on House Bill 2125 to go to calendar and rules. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Bill moves out to calendar and rules.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee.
Next on our agenda is House Bill 1975. We have a motion and a second. Mr. Sponsor, you are cleared to explain your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. House Bill 1975 is, it would exempt the Doe Mountain Recreation Area or Authority from the requirement to promulgate rules to establish and impose user fees. Long story short, the Doe Mountain Recreation Authority would like to be able to establish their own fees. And what happens here, for those who aren't aware, Doe Mountain is over 8,600 acres of mountainous terrain, including a number of trails where people from various places are coming to ride their side-by-sides and having a great day in the outdoors. I encourage people to come up and visit the place if at all possible. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Members, you've heard an explanation of the bill. Do we have questions of the sponsor? Seeing none, without objection, we're voting on House Bill 1975 to go to calendar and rules. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Bill moves out to calendar and rules. Thank you, Mr. Sponsor.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is House Bill 2145 by Chair Lady Littleton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill,
Second, we have a motion and a second. You're recognized.
we're calling this the Tennessee Foster's Hope. It's the administration bill to improve foster care. The first part of the bill will expand eligibility for extension of foster care services, a wraparound services program for young adults still in DCS custody when they turn 18. Eligibility will be expanded to include full-time employment and non-credit bearing vocational training programs. And Part 2 of this bill will allow DCS to pay a per diem to the relative caregivers instead of placing a child into full custody. DCS does not currently reimburse caregivers who assume custody of a child they are related to. This prevents many relative caregivers from accepting this responsibility, resulting in the child going into full state custody and full foster care at the full daily rate foster care. And under this proposal, DCS will reimburse relative caregivers 50% of the daily foster care board rate for the level of care assigned to the child. To be eligible, relative caregivers would have to satisfy screening and training requirements set out by DCS to ensure the child's safety.
Members, you've heard the sponsor's explanation of the bill. Do we have questions of the sponsor? We're on a roll. All right. With that explanation, members, a good motion and a second, we are voting on sending House Bill 2145 to Finance, Ways, and Means. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Bill moves out to Finance, Ways, and Means. Next on our agenda is House Bill 2660 by Speaker Sexton and carried by Chairman Lafferty. We have a motion and a second. Chairman Lafferty, I'm showing an amendment of 13680 to go on the bill. Is that correct, sir?
Yes, sir.
We have a motion and a second on the amendment. Please, first off, does this amendment make the bill?
I believe it does, yes.
In that case, we're going to vote to put it on there. All in favor of putting Amendment 13680 onto House Bill 2660 indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The amendment is on the bill. Now you are cleared to explain your bill as amended, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm here to present House Bill 2660 on behalf of Speaker Sexton regarding pharmacy benefit managers. This legislation authorizes the Commissioner of Commerce and Insurance to promulgate rules to effectuate the purposes of policies regarding pharmacy benefits and pharmacy benefit managers. This puts the regulation of PBMs on the same level as insurance companies. It authorizes the department to provide additional oversight where the legislature has already determined that PBMs are restricted to ensure patient access to affordable drugs. These rules include, but are not limited to, implementing PBM audits that are necessary to ensure compliance, to provide for additional requirements for PBMs to obtain licensure, to implement a complaint and administrative hearing process to enforce sanctions for PBMs that violate any portion of Part 31, and to authorize the Commissioner to charge a fee to be paid by the PBMs for costs associated with administering compliance of the rules, including the auditing of the PBM. These rules must be promulgated in accordance with the UAPA. And with that, sir, I'll wait for questions.
Members, you've heard the sponsor's explanation. We do have some witnesses to testify if you have questions of those, but do we have any questions of the sponsor? Seeing none, any questions need to be answered by witnesses? Seeing none, we are voting on sending House Bill 2660 to Finance, Ways and Means. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Bill moves out to Finance, Ways and Means. Members, next on our agenda is House Bill 1788, and I pass the gavel to Vice Chair Reedy.
Thank you, Chairman Reagan. You are recognized on House Bill 1788. Do I have a motion? Motion and a second, Mr. Chairman?
Thank you, Vice Chair Reedy. This bill basically extends the Department of Human Services to 2026. Pending any questions from the members, I move passage of House Bill 1781.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And members, at this time, we will go out of session to hear from, I'm guessing, Commissioner Carter. So we're out. Please check your microphone for the red light going on. And please
bring that down some. Does that work?
There you go. Introduce yourself to the committee and to those virtually watching.
Superb. Good afternoon. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, my name is Clarence Carter. I am Commissioner of the Tennessee Department of Human Services, and I am joined at the table today by our Deputy Commissioner for Programs, Sherelle Campbell-Street, and our Inspector General, who heads our Office of Inspector General, Todd McKinney. Sorry about that. Okay. So I've got some brief notes to share with you if you'd like, or we can get right to questions, however you would prefer to proceed.
Any members have a question for the Commissioner?
Let's do the notes.
Yes, Commissioner, if you would share your notes with us.
I'm sorry?
Go ahead and share
Yes.
your notes with us.
Okay. There are, in our sunset hearing, there were two findings that I want to speak to briefly. The first finding is about our vocational rehabilitation program. And I'll read the finding to you. The Division of Rehabilitation Services customers did not always receive timely and complete individualized plans for employment, have enough contacts with or progress reviewed by their counselors, or have a documented supervisory review process. And let me just speak briefly to why that this is so important. Our emphasis in our vocational rehabilitation program is to create the enabling conditions for those that we serve to be able to have employment which earns them a life-sustaining wage. And so this is the mechanism by which we do that. And it has to be very individualized, because the challenges attendant to each individual are very specific to them. And so these individualized plans for employment, they take in a whole context of that individual we're trying to serve. So it's important for us that mechanism work. The department concurs with the finding and has partnered with the comptroller to ensure our new quality control measures are to the standard acceptable to all parties. So we have forged a strong working partnership with the comptroller's office to in their role to identify challenges to our operations and to help us strengthen them. And so we've concurred with that. And in our transformation process in which the agency is involved in, we are addressing all of these challenges attendant to our VR program. And there was one observation in Voc Rehab. The Division of Rehabilitative Services Management may wish to evaluate its resources and consider the benefits of providing services to more vocational rehabilitation customers. Now, folks, this is a challenge of us being able to draw down additional federal dollars to, if you would, we could either open up more categories of service with additional federal dollars, or we could, of our own devices, in our current construct, we could open up other categories of service. That is truly at our dispatch to do. Now, we would not be able to, with the existing resources, serve more, but we could serve broader within our existing fiscal constraints. We could serve more if we were able to draw down more federal dollars to do so. But currently, if we were to take our very limited state resources and shift them to draw down more of the vocational rehabilitation funding, we would be kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul, because we would be reducing some other services. But we also we agree with the observation, and just wanted to explain that's the challenge that we face. And so there's a second finding with regard to our child care services. The department's child care division needs to improve its documentation for investigations conducted. And the headline of this is that we have an obligation to investigate our licensed child care agencies. And we take that responsibility very seriously. And this finding gives us some guidance for how to strengthen how we can go about that. And also in the context of what we are doing across our enterprise, is we are focusing on a complete transformation of the way the Department of Human Services goes about carrying out its business. And so our child care division is also an important part of that transformation. And much of what we are doing there system-wise will actually go live early this spring. So we feel like we will address all the challenges attendant to this finding going forward in the context of our transformation. Mr. Chairman, that's the overview of what I wanted to share with you. Happy to answer any questions or comments you may have.
Thank you, Commissioner. Chairman Reagan, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, and my apologies to the committee. I should have mentioned that the audit report about which he was talking is included on your dashboard in the supplemental. He's addressed the information that was in there, but it's there if you choose to go further. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
And of course, members, that's what this bill bringing forward as introduced extends the Department of Human Services to June 30th, 2026. Any further questions? Representative Littleton, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I have a question about unlicensed daycares, and I think you know what I'm talking about, where
Yes,
there are
ma'am.
30-something children in one home that isn't licensed. I don't really understand how that happened, but what is the punishment for them? I mean, what do we do, and how do we stop that?
So how we stop it is through our investigations mechanism. We diligently attempt to review all licensed childcare. Now, the challenge is the statute allows for unlicensed childcare no more than 4 unrelated children in the same home for more than 3 hours. Is that accurate? Okay. So we don't have an investigation mechanism for unlicensed childcare, but it did come to our attention that there was a pretty significant actor in your district, and we have filed against that individual, and we continue to monitor the court ruling was that this home was being improperly operated. And so now we continue to monitor. We were just out this past week to ensure that there are no more than 4 children in that unlicensed home.
Chair Lady?
But should there be any, after what took place in that home, should there be any children there for a while? I mean, there were over 20 toddlers in that home.
I realize, Sherelle, did you want to?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank
Please-
you.
please
Sherelle
recognize-
Campbell, my name is Sherelle Campbell Street. I'm the Deputy Commissioner for Program and Services. And you are correct, Representative Littleton, that there should not be. And so our role in that is there was an order, court-ordered, filed in which it outlined that you cannot have more than, as Commissioner said, the rules here in Tennessee is 4 unrelated children. And so our role in that is that we will go back and check. And if we find that they are, again, in violation, then we can take further action. But it is simply I think one of the things that we have to do is we have to be there to see it ourselves. And in this particular case, when we went back Friday, this particular person did not have but 1 child in her care.
And that was an unannounced.
It was an unannounced visit. She did not realize we were coming.
Yeah. So we have that. We have that entity on our radar screen and a court order which allows us to do just that. And we will continue to do so.
Thank you for that information. Chair Lady?
Just one last question. I guess my main concern is she got away with that. And is there no punishment at all for her, or what can be done about that? I mean, those children were in some pretty bad positions.
They were, and I think the court has prescribed the remedy, and that is not for the agency to do. We can follow the court's remedy, but it's not for DHS to levy the remedy. It is for us to follow the rules of the court here, and she's been enjoined from having more than 4 children, and with that injunction, it enables us to be very diligent on an ongoing basis to continue to do these unannounced visits. But other than that, from a punishment perspective, that's not within the purview of the agency.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any further questions? Representative Calfee, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner, thanks for being here today. And I want to follow up on what Representative Littleton said. Was this woman committing child neglect or child abuse or anything like that she could be criminally charged for?
There was no sense that any of the children in her care were in any way, shape, or form abused or neglected. It is just that it does not follow the rules, and the rules are there for the purpose of, we want to ensure that that there can be a healthy and safe environment. And what the state rules have determined is more than 4 unrelated children create that unhealthy environment. But there was no finding of abuse or neglect.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Mr.
Yes, sir.
Representative Dixie.
Well, I just had one quick question, but Representative, I forget where he's from, but he, right, wrong county. He asked the question that I was going to ask, was there any criminal activity that was associated with it?
And I would just like to say, Sherelle Campbell Street, Tennessee Department of Human Services, when it comes to neglect and child abuse, that would be with the Department of Children's Services. Our role in this is looking at the health and safety as it pertains to the environment. And oftentimes we work in partnership, close partnership with the Department of Children's Services.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Chairman Lafferty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll change gear and go back to the vocational rehabilitation program. Just for my understanding, when we use the term vocational rehabilitation, are we talking about someone that's been injured on a job and is going through some sort of physical rehabilitation, or are we talking about training folks for another career?
We are talking about folks that are sort of physically disabled in some way that are eligible for our vocational rehabilitation services. It's the idea is that we choose to focus on a person's ability as opposed to whatever their physical or cognitive challenges are. And so our emphasis is that everybody who can work should work. We simply need, in these circumstances, to provide more supports. And so that's what our VR program focuses on. Anybody who has these kinds of developmental, physical, or cognitive disabilities is open to our Voc Rehab program for us to create these customized approaches to help them work.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay. Thank you. Any further questions for the Commissioner and his staff? Seeing none, Commissioner, thank you for the information being with us today.
Mr. Chairman, thanks so much. Pleasure to be
We're
with you.
back in session. Any further discussion from Chairman Reagan on his bill? Previous question has been called with no objection. All in favor of moving House Bill 1788 to calendar and rules signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition, nay. Bill moves out to calendar and rules. Next on our calendar, number 8, House Bill 1821, Tennessee Residents Commission. Chairman Reagan, you are recognized on the bill. Do I have a motion? Motion. We got a motion and a second. Chairman Reagan.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. This bill extends the Tennessee Residents Commission to 2030. And again, I'll call your attention to the Q&A report that's on your dashboard, if you have any reference on that. And with that explanation, pending questions, I move passage of 1821.
Any questions, comments for Chairman Reagan? Seeing none, are we ready to vote? All in favor of moving House Bill 1821 to calendar rules signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition, nay. Bill moves out. Chairman Reagan, the gavel's yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Thank you to the members. I think we've had a very efficient committee here. We've gotten a lot done today. If there are no questions, the chair will entertain a motion for adjournment. Non-debatable. We're adjourned.